Welcome, everybody.
Hey, hey.
Work smarter where you want.
This is learning at its most fun.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me for another Best Practice Partner webinar. My name is Austin Johnson. I am a subject matter expert and trainer here at RightCapital Technology. Today, I'm joined by my friend Daniel, the training lead over at RightCapital. And today, we have a webinar for you to discuss how to better present to your clients remotely. So, Daniel, why don't you go ahead and get us started with how we can better present to our clients remotely.
Austin, thank you so much for having me today. I apologize about that little hiccup there. My name is Daniel Gregoire from RightCapital Financial Planning Software. And ultimately, we are thrilled to be here with you today to be able to discuss this very relevant topic for our times, which is, of course, presenting a plan remotely. Now, during this pandemic, we've all had to get used to a whole new level of essentially autonomy when working with our clients and essentially working in an area where we can communicate and interact with clients on a remote level. So this is obviously something that we want to make sure is going to be essentially a part of our new norm moving forward. And that's why we felt this is such a unique topic to be able to present. Austin and I have the pleasure of working with wonderful financial advisors every day, and we do remote screen sharing consistently throughout our week, every week. And that's why we've established a lot of best practices that we thought we could pass along to you. And a lot of those best practices are in line with, of course, just making sure that that first impression when you're doing maybe a live screen share is the right one, right? So what you just saw with a small little hiccup with the technology is something that it perfectly exemplifies why this is so important and why we have these best practices in place. But as we know, technology is not always perfect, and there's occasionally some things that need to be just fine-tuned throughout the process. So hopefully today we can arm all of you with some additional information on how you can effectively present a financial plan remotely to your clients and how you can work with them while still maintaining your level of professionalism through your relationship. And of course, we're going to walk through a lot of great information today. First and foremost, though, I just want to let everyone know that this presentation is going to be focused on the full scope of gathering information from your clients remotely through remote data collection. Then, of course, that next really important step of preparing for a remote screen share, which does involve a little bit of organization and maybe some things you hadn't thought about before. And then, of course, being in the presentation is a very important part of the actual delivery, and of controlling that flow of information is integral for making sure your clients are seeing the value of your proposition and maybe taking those next action steps that you're hoping to have them do. So through that process, we'll show you how a tool like RightCapital can help you with remote data collection, preparing your computer for a screen share, controlling the presentation flow, with some tips and tricks for how to keep things discreet and making sure we're giving the respect to all of our additional clients as we're working through the presentation. And then, of course, we're also going to touch upon great ways to follow up with the clients remotely. So as we all know, presenting remotely is likely going to be a part of our future until we see some additional, resources in terms of vaccinations becoming available for our country. And although some of us may be back in the normal swing of things, a lot of us are still presenting and working from home and working off our computers and interacting with clients in that regard, especially for the older generations who we are looking to talk to about, of course, properly distributing wealth in a tax efficient manner, or working, through different maybe opportunities that we're seeing with for things like the CARES Act or the Secures Act being passed. So there is lots of relevant information that we need to get to our clients right now. But of course, the issue is how can we do that and keep them safe and us safe in the process? So of course, presenting remotely is really the key to that and that question. Now, let's dive in to talk a little bit about how you can leverage some of the tools at your disposal to collect data remotely. Now, of course, if you're using RightCapital, that's wonderful. We'd be thrilled to have you. If you're using other, financial planning softwares or other softwares out there, we do think that the option to collect data remotely is a very important part of the value proposition of that software. So, of course, whether you're sending a specific client, a data collection template to get ready for a presentation you're going to be doing for them, or maybe you're asking them to add some additional new information that maybe the client has recently just changed jobs or lost jobs, or maybe sold off some stock that you need to know about. These are all ways that you can prepare for this meeting, but do it in a way that's remote and safe for you and the clients. So at Right Capital, we have a wonderful, what we call leads URL that can be simply built directly into your website or social media, which with one click will allow a new client to simply launch right into the data entry phases of your financial planning software, Right Capital, which is very helpful if you have that, phone call of somebody who's really looking to see maybe what's changed in their life, how this financial, these swings through the past few months has impacted maybe their goals in retirement. They can actually just with the click of one button from your social media or your website, start plugging in data to a financial plan. And of course, that data collection template is another great way to just simply send the client either a hard copy of paper in hand, or a digital copy with an email, to be able just to get that information, those relevant details of how we can project that client's net worth into the future, to answer the questions of what has changed, can they still fund their goals, and how can we really help this client with our value propositions. Now, I also want to bring up a really important part of remote data collection, which is this essential idea of needing really up-to-date, relevant data. So of course, having account aggregation or account integration where clients can physically link their bank accounts, their investment accounts, let's say their loans to a software like RightCapital is a key way to make sure that there is no errors in the data entry and that you're getting information that is up to date as of yesterday's closing in terms of the markets. So that's another key part of this, is how can we maintain a level of consistency, staying very up to date with information without actually coming in physical contact with our clients. So that is another piece of this. Now, there's also a lot of resources at your disposal from RightCapital if you're using RightCapital as a financial planning software to actually help your clients through this process. We know that not all clients are going to be the best with computers, and we know that especially maybe those older generations who are maybe planning some estate strategies or how to effectively pass the wealth on to the next generation are going to need a little bit of hand-holding when utilizing something like a online data collection form. Or for example, they might need a little bit more confidence in the tool to help them through. So we try to develop lots of different client-facing resources that can not only help you assist your clients linking their accounts, but also simply to explain, for example, the security and safeguards that we have for their data. So having all that information built into your initial touch point is a very effective way to deliver a confidence-inspiring experience for that client or prospect who you're going to be presenting to in the near future. Now, another big part of this as well is branding that whole experience. So from maybe the invitation email to start inputting information online, or maybe even the email that you send out to them that asks them to maybe link their bank accounts, if that is all branded with your logo, your color theme, all of your firm's ideals, then that is something that you can essentially view as just an extension of your firm and your services. And that, again, inspires confidence with your clients to trust the information that you're providing and to trust the process that you're presenting them with. And RightCapital is going to be a software that's going to allow you to do that. It's going to allow you to literally brand your logo and your color theme onto those invitation emails, onto the actual data collection form itself, maybe even into that RightCapital leads URL that your clients will click on your website to just start entering data as a new plan. So all of this is a part of keeping your clients comfortable through a situation that is new to them, which everyone can relate to, can be a little stressful. And part of that, beyond branding that and making sure that the invitations are coming with your own verbiage and tone, not just that maybe default invitation that's set up for you, it can really add that warmth that can comfort your clients and let them know that you are seeing this through for them, and getting them to the place they need to be without you having to spend an hour on the phone with them typing in data points, because we all know a lot can get lost in translation. So making sure we have that branding experience, that warmth and tone of your own verbiage in the invitations, utilizing all the resources you have available, and essentially making sure you can connect accounts through aggregation or integration are ways that we make sure that your clients can give you all the data that you need on a remote level. Meaning you don't have to have them in the office. They don't have to mail you that quarterly statement. Everything literally can be done safely and securely through secure cloud storage without secure emails being sent back and forth. And that's all facilitated by a tool like RightCapital or others out there. So whatever tool you are using out there in the industry, we recommend you look into ways that you can convey this information to your clients in a way that's going to allow them to feel welcome to join into this process. Now that you've essentially seen the ways that you can gather data with RightCapital, I do want to just focus on a few quick things that are not so much tied directly to RightCapital, but more so on everyone's computer level. So first and foremost, preparing for a virtual meeting is quite different than preparing for an in-person meeting. Obviously, accessing tools like Zoom that we're on right now, maybe it's Join Me or GoToWebinar or Skype for Business. These are screen sharing devices that really have their own flow and presentation feel. And if you're not used to working with these tools, it's very important to spend some time practicing on them to know how you can use them to your advantages, how you can communicate with your clients through these in ways that are both compliant, but also in ways that are going to make sure that that client is going to have a positive experience. So much like the start of our presentation today, things can go wrong, and there can be times when you might have a little glitch in the system. But knowing that product and that software that you're using soup to nuts before you get into that presentation is going to be a huge part of getting prepared for this virtual meeting. And that's going to involve things like, of course, setting yourself up for success by maybe going through a mock presentation first with a business partner of yours or a family member, just to make sure that things are flowing smoothly. That also is going to make sure you log into that software day of to make sure that there's no updates that need to be made. We've all potentially been there. We're about to join into a meeting, and all of a sudden there's a pop-up window that says we need to update to the latest version to access. And that might be the difference between you being there 10 minutes early, or maybe just getting there on time and not having quite that that first impression that you were hoping for. Because of course, with a virtual meeting, the client is viewing your screen, and if you're not going to be there to show them, that's something that isn't going to inspire a lot of confidence. Now, with a tool like RightCapital, you also have the ability to review all of your clients' recent activity to be able to make sure that if they've been updating information in their data entry. So if they've changed their salary, if maybe they've sold their house or maybe are moving to a new state, and you can see all that. So again, reviewing that information beforehand in your software or RightCapital itself is going to be a really important part of getting ready for this meeting and knowing even more information than maybe the client is telling you. And to the same point of making sure you have those maybe updates downloaded or other information downloaded, entering the software 15 minutes early to test out your microphone, to test out your video if you're going to be using that, and to make sure that all of your other softwares are interacting appropriately, whether it's your browser window or your PowerPoint presentation or RightCapital software, just again, making sure that you're showing the correct desktop, showing the correct information is going to be really, really important. And by entering 15 minutes early, you can dry run everything before your client gets there, even if they show up 5 minutes before the bell. So that is a very important part of this, and making sure that you're, going to be successful. So, as with any remote sharing presentation, Austin and I were able to log in early, get everything set up just the way we wanted it to. Of course, I couldn't get my mute turned off. That was a problem, but hey, you end up just having these things happen occasionally, but not letting that impact the rest of your presentation is a big part of working remotely, because technology might have a glitch here or there, but ultimately, if you can keep your pace and keep your tempo and not let it fluster you, that's where you're really going to excel, because people understand if there is maybe a slight blip in the audio, or if maybe there's a screen that's not sharing immediately. It's something that is a part of delivering remote presentations, but as long as you can keep your composure through it, that's going to be a big part of dealing with remote access. Now, as I mentioned, to dry run that software you're using, like RightCapital, and the presentation itself is a big part of presenting remotely. But another big part of this that people don't quite always grasp is to understand that you're going to be showing your screen, which means your clients might be looking at your desktop. And essentially, this is at sometimes, with prospects, going to be like a first date. You want to make sure you're putting your best foot forward. So remembering that when you're presenting remotely, even if you're not planning on showing your desktop background, there's a good chance that maybe a window will close accidentally, or something will shift over where you might have a full view of your backdrop. So it's important to organize your desktop to make sure it's not too cluttered. And there's also another opportunity here to maybe even brand your desktop background with your firm's logo to, again, reinforce that branding message that you have with your clients. And so I'm going to actually go through a quick example right now of what it can look like for maybe a messy, desktop, and how we can resolve that quickly and easily without having to spend all of our time maybe rummaging through and organizing things. So I'll just quickly pause this screen share and flip over to my desktop here. Now, what you are going to see next is my actual desktop. So one thing I will say is we're able to jumble things up a little bit here for you. So hopefully everyone at this point here, as I open this back up, we're actually going to now show my RightCapital desktop. So this is something that is not very appealing right off the bat. You might have that dock on the bottom that's visible. You can always hide this by clicking it and clicking Control and hide this if you don't want that visible to your clients. But making sure any of your internal messaging systems are off, making sure your email is essentially logged out so you're not going to see emails popping in from other clients on the top right corner of your screen is really important to not disrupt the flow of your presentation. And if you are somebody with lots of different, let's say, folders all over your desktop like I currently have now, there are ways to simply hide those for a presentation. So again, being able to simply hide those desktop icons is a great way to, again, deliver that nice clean visual for your clients. And it might even keep things a little more discreet for maybe other client folders that you're working with. Now, this is an app that I'm using, but on both Mac and PC, you can do this by just simply utilizing different solutions. So on PCs, you can just right click on your desktop and click view, and that will essentially allow you to see the desktop items, which will allow you to hide them or show them. And if you're using a Mac, you can use the terminal to actually hide those. I'm using an app, like I said, there's lots out there, lots are free. So if you're looking to download something, apps like Hidden Me or other apps you can use simply to hide those desktop items. And again, having maybe even an additional branding on the software, again, just reinforces that information. Even if you were not planning on simply, working from that desktop area, even if you were going to be in a, let's say, a situation where you were going to be hoping to show, a PowerPoint presentation, things do happen. And in remote presentations, and there are times where screens might be minimized. So that is a big part of course, delivering an effective presentation is understanding that it's going to take a little bit of work up front, but you can set yourself up for success by really getting to know your software that you're working with, soup to nuts, as it relates to being able to, go through that remote screen share and understand, the different roadblocks that your customers might be facing. You want to make sure you know whether or not they need a password to enter the actual screen share and how you can enable that if they do, or really just customize the experience overall, as well as of course making sure that your clients can talk back to you. So there might be settings that might mute your clients upon entering a presentation, and again, those kinds of things can allow you to understand the settings that are available and use them to your advantage, but also leverage them to help your clients interact with you. So of course, those are important factors before the meeting, but as we actually get into the meeting itself, there are some tips and tricks we want to highlight with you. So first and foremost, when we're presenting remotely, you do have the option of first and foremost setting up just an audio screen share, so where the client is viewing your screen and maybe working with you directly off of a financial plan, or you could actually turn on your video as well. And so if that's the case, you do also want to be aware of what you look like, of your backdrop, making sure that the environment you're in is suitable for that first impression with a potential prospect or an existing client, as this is a very valuable time to reinforce relationships that we do have with clients as they're looking for assistance. There's a lot of question marks out there for the future, and to have somebody who's going to be put together in an environment that they feel comfortable in and speaking to you about, their finances is going to be a big part of making sure that this is a successful interaction. Having, family members walking through the background, if you have your video on, or if, you're, maybe have your video on, but not engaging with the screen like you would a client, that can be off-putting. You want to make sure your attention is focused on the screen, focused on the client. And obviously, if the client is seeing you in a video, they can see if you're looking down at your phone. They can see all those other things you're doing. So make sure that they feel like you're presenting them the information as it relates to, how you can help them in the future, and, allowing them to make those action steps for the future. So when we are setting up for a presentation, it is important as well to prepare our analysis tools and our interfaces with the clients to make sure that we're not spending too much time in a remote presentation fumbling through different data inputs. So we want to essentially set everything and stage everything in a way that's going to help your clients immediately see the value in what you're talking about. So what I mean by that is, potentially, utilizing our really helpful visuals within RightCapital or whatever software you're using to essentially set the stage for the conversations to occur. And we'll show you a little bit more about what that would look like in just a moment. But we also want to follow a very logical tool progression. This may be a situation your clients aren't fully comfortable with, and so making sure you're organized in the presentation is a big part of delivering an effective message. Usually within RightCapital, that presentation flow or that logical tool progression evolves around where your client's assets are at, today. What is their net worth, liabilities, where's everything, actually, funneling into in their financial plan? What are the client's goals and how are they being funded in the future? And what's the overall probability of success in ending assets if they were to reach the end of their life with essentially investments left? So again, following that progression from where are we now, where are our assets today, what are our goals in the future, how are we funding them, and what's our probability of making it to the end of our life with money left is a great full scope presentation. But again, you can really focus in that presentation on your value add to the client and use the visual tools and the analysis tools that we give you to back up the information that you're saying and to really present the client with the benefits of your value add. So let's take a quick look about what I mean by that exactly. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to quickly pause the share again here. We're going to just head over to a quick desktop item here, and then we're going to simply resume. Now, I will say that in Right Capital, I mentioned there's a lot of great ways that you can, capture the client's information. A lot of those for the remote data collection are found in the actual help center, which is an important part of Right Capital. So in the advisor portal, there's a help icon where you can find all those details. But today, maybe we're delivering a presentation to our client, Johnny Debt here. And maybe in Johnny Dett's plan, we would take time to go into this client's financial plan before the presentation begins and set up the analysis tools in a way that makes the most sense. So Right Capital does follow a very logical progression from left to right of the analysis tools, from talking about where the client's assets are today with the dashboard and investment tabs, to then transition into the retirement tab, which focuses on the future. What are their goals? How are they funding them? And what's their probability of success within Monte Carlo analysis. But here is an example of maybe this debt management tool within Right Capital that we could organize and set up for our delivery to this client. So for example, this is an analysis tool that has a very powerful visual, but it's not set up to illustrate anything at the moment. So having to log into this with the client without anything set up is a little disheartening. So what we might want to do in this case before the meeting is organize potentially a different payment strategy for this debt, maybe propose some additional money that we want to see this client put towards the debt on a monthly basis, and then have the visual set up for success to be able to initially log into this tool, have a helpful guide to tell your clients why you're going to recommend this different strategy of maybe a reallocation of payments from highest to lowest interest rate with an additional $100 towards the payments every month. And then you're always going to have examples within the analysis tools ready to go with helpful ideas of what the value actually is to your clients. And then you're always going to find an area for client-facing notes. That might be a great place for a call to action. So this might be, for example, a great place for you to say, make additional principal payment on your mortgage every year. And that will help to reduce your 30-year mortgage to a 22-year mortgage. So this is a great place for you to input your calls to action or your notes to remind yourself about information through the presentation for each specific area. So as you then enter this tool, you'll have the helpful visual right in front of you to tell your client how much better your strategy is and what your action steps are to achieve that strategy. And these action steps are wonderful because they not only actually print on the report itself, but they're also visible on the client access as well. So you can really stage all this information in each analysis tool before you actually get into the presentation, so you're not spending too much time playing with variables, as that is something you'll want to make sure you can keep the client's attention without moving around too much. So let's head back into the PowerPoint just to deliver a little more of this. So I do want to focus as well on some information that is going to be important when you are delivering information remotely. As we mentioned, being able to keep discretion at a maximum for your clients is very important. So whether that's just, like I said, logging out of your email so you don't have other clients' emails popping up as you're working on your presentation, or even if you had maybe those additional financial plans saved to your desktop with your client's last name or any other sensitive information, you want to make sure that that is nowhere to be found on the actual remote screen share. And part of that involves some tips and tricks for using Right Capital. So again, things like hiding the client list are going to be very important to make sure that you're not going to see all those names when you're accessing Right Capital as a tool. Again, you might not plan on showing the client the advisor portal, but there may be a scenario where you need to make an adjustment somewhere, let's say in the global settings. And if you head back out, if the client list is not hidden, you're going to see everyone's name, which again is not a great way to inspire confidence for your existing or new clients. Again, keeping that consistent branding across the board, as we already mentioned, on your desktop, on your actual software, on even the invitations, can be a great way to, again, reinforce to those clients who aren't as confident using technology that you are there to help them through the process and that this process is simply an extension of your firm. And then, of course, really important as well is to make sure that we are always aligning our settings to each individual client's needs. And what I mean by that is keeping in mind, what goals each client has in mind, and really what are we trying to do for them. So that comes into play when we're talking about preparing for a client meeting. And before, again, we get into a remote presentation where the clients can see every click of our mouse, it's important to make all those adjustments beforehand so we're not caught flat-footed, maybe with a question that took us by surprise, or maybe we thought the client was planning one thing and they're maybe thinking about something else now. So it's important to know where everything is located, set it up to the best of your abilities before the presentation so you can minimize adjustments when the client is viewing every click of your mouse, because again, that's not something that's going to be helpful for the presentation, and it can essentially cause the client to lose interest as you're working through the information. And along those similar notes, organizing your clients' wants and needs into proposals is going to really help you to make sure that your delivery is efficient and does not use any confusing back and forth and clicking on screens. We want to make sure the client isn't trying to follow us as we frantically click to different tabs. We want everything to be very clean and in line with your presentation flow. And again, whatever software you're using, if it's RightCapital, if it's another financial planning software out there, this is going to be a big part of setting yourself up for success and really delivering that presentation that's going to inspire that call to action. So we'll talk about that a little more in just a bit, but the major thing here as well is not only the delivery of the presentation remotely, but how we can follow up from that presentation remotely, as continuing that engagement with your clients and maybe having the ability to follow up with them as maybe another major market downturn occurs, or staying ahead of certain information that maybe the client will call about in the future. So again, for all of these reasons, being able to have that remote follow-up in a way that's easy to get in contact with the clients is going to be very important. And especially when clients are in this time of being worried about their future and looking for help, this is a great way for you to get ahead of those phone calls that might be, in those panicked moments of should I sell or should I stay, and how do I, manage, this new outcome we're looking at. And so what you can do is utilize tools at your disposal to actually keep your clients in the loop at all times, by allowing them potentially to have access to a tool like RightCapital, which would give them the ability to upload documents to the vault, or maybe you're going to upload a report to the vault for them every 3 weeks or every month as we're going through this pandemic, to maybe reinforce that information that they can always then access if they have questions or if they have concerns. So having somewhere that's remote, that's secure, that a client can upload information to at any moment without having to send those secure emails back and forth is a great way to stay engaged with clients. And on that note, you can even assign a task for those clients as well to maybe remind them to view the report that you've uploaded to the vault, or maybe to remind them to upload that new quarterly statement, or to link that bank account for the most up-to-date information on their investments or bank accounts. So this is a great way, again, to continually stay in contact with clients and reinforce your branding through the whole process, whether that's downloading the mobile app for the clients where they can consistently just click on the actual app itself on their smartphone, see your logo, see your color theme, and see all of their accounts and all of their information in one place, to do everything from tracking their spending through the budgeting tool to seeing if their probability of success has decreased if there was a major market downturn. And all of those things, again, help your clients to stay comfortable and to stay focused on the long-term goal of essentially not outliving their assets. And in most cases, if you have clients who are stressed about this, scenario that we're in, if they've just retired and they saw a big hit to their 401k, their major concern is how do they look in terms of being able to survive their assets. And that's what RightCapital or other softwares like it can give you with the click of one app on the smartphone, and that can eliminate a lot of those panicked phone calls down the road. So again, using the tools at your disposal, whether it's the mobile app or the client vault, and being able to allow access to certain parts of RightCapital software, including the budgeting tool with a Mint-like functionality, is going to really allow your clients to stay in that long-term planning mindset and not focus on the individual ups and downs of the market. And it's going to allow you to continually follow up with your clients to make sure that they are comfortable as they move through this difficult time. And, last but certainly not least, if you are looking for a billing solution as well, to have the ability to bill your clients directly remotely, you can utilize a compliant tool like RightCapital RightPay to do that, which is always a great way to make sure your clients are, again, not having to mail you checks or to work through any other payment processing service that may not be compliant for financial planning. So overall, when we're talking about remote planning, a lot of this is the setup and the follow-up, because of course, this is a whole new way of interacting with clients. So whether that's getting onto that screen sharing software and getting to know it soup to nuts before the presentation, working on dry runs and making sure that all of your different components, from your microphone to your actual environment that you're in and the backdrop behind your camera, is all going to look consistent and appropriate for the presentation that you're doing. And that also includes setting up your desktop for success, getting organized with those different items, whether that's utilizing an app that hides desktop icons, or whether that's just using the right click on your desktop and then hiding desktop items on a PC or the terminal for a Mac. But this is all a big part of getting yourself ready to start presenting remotely in a way that's efficient and confidence inspiring for the clients. Keeping the branding consistent through the experience is another big part of this. Keeping organized and making sure the presentation flow, much like in a normal presentation, is all in line with your client's objectives and can clearly show a need for a call to action, is going to be very important. And even more important than an in-person presentation, because your clients are going to be harder to keep engaged with you when you're working with them remotely than maybe they would be when they're sitting across the table from you, looking at you eye to eye. So this is something where it takes a little more thought and a little more organization, but it can be more efficient at times. And ultimately, to be able to illustrate your value with simple visuals that are warm and inviting and are not too complex is a big part of being able to objectively deliver your information. So again, we don't want to be showing the cash flow spreadsheets. We don't want to lose the clients in the numbers. We want to work with those warm visual tools with graph overlays like we've seen in other options. So again, granting that access to the client portal, the mobile app, and then following up using the vault feature and the tasks feature, and eventually billing through something like RightPay is a great start on setting yourself up for success with a solution like RightCapital. And again, just one more quick toggle back to the software here. I do want to just help everyone to visualize, if you are a RightCapital user, how you would potentially go about, for example, hiding a client list. So for an example here, we do have our advisor portal with RightCapital where we have the full client list visible. It's something that we really would prefer you to hide this if you're going to be presenting remotely, as you never quite know when you're going to be having to log back into this advisor portal. And you can do that simply by visiting the gear icon, visiting the account tab, and then under preferences, we do have the ability to simply do not automatically list those clients on the advisor portal. And that will allow us to essentially lose our client list. We can then search by the last name to focus on a specific client, like Johnny Det here. And for Johnny, I also want to reiterate that every single client is going to have their own secure vault within their financial plan. So under the more icon with the 3 dots, there will be a vault feature, which is secure cloud storage that your clients can upload documents to, that you can upload documents to. That can be a great place to continue communications. And you can even follow up with things like tasks when you're working with those clients to be able to remind them to potentially review, let's say, report in vault. And this would allow the clients to be email notified of this particular task 2 weeks before the due date, 1 week before the due date and on the day that it's due. And then, of course, once it's completed, you as the advisor would be email notified that the client has done so. So ultimately, these are resources that are at your disposal. You can gather data remotely. You can actually present these plans remotely, and you can even invite the client to participate in the software in the mobile app and customize everything that they can see. So if this is a tool that you're certainly interested in, you could always reach out to rightcapital.com to get a demo of the software to see if it would work for you. But even if you are working with another software, it is important to get to know all these different features to be able to truly understand what's going to be the best options for your clients and how you can deliver the most effective presentation.
Thanks so much for joining us today for this particular session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-206-5030, option 3 for support, or just shoot us an email over to support@redtailtechnology.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.